Just one quick question because I'm looking at your website here and checking out the the Essentials Publishing package.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just wondering how your one thing about your setup. Have you adjusted that yet for more fiction writing on the grounds that um, memoirs? I have no idea, but memoirs are going to A, have pictures in, and B, generally,
Yeah.
and maybe a shorter word count. Um, I don't know, but you've got it down. The Essentials one starts is up to 50,000 words. That's a short novel, fiction
Yeah.
novel. I was just wondering, are you going maybe looking at tailoring it more to the fiction novel?
Well, I'm doing the Giants program with Blackbird VC, and what I actually want is a book building calculator. And so
Mm,
that's what I'm working on at the moment. So someone can either be guided through that form, or it's a very easy, how many words is your book? Does
yeah,
your book have images? Do you have a photo that you want on the cover? Do you need to source a photo? Because it's really hard. Like typesetting can vary so much.
yeah,
So that package, there's like the small print is like this is for 15 photos.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's what I want to do.
yeah.
Every book is bespoke, really. Like there's
Mm,
no two books of the same word length with the same requirements. Like, yeah, that's been another massive learning thing for me is keeping the transparency and then going, oh, I have underpriced. And then I must honor it,
mm,
because so it is risky from a business point of view, but I feel like also I don't want to do the kind of cloak and dagger, send us an email and I'll send you a thing. I don't want to be criticized as one of the sharks. So I'm like, okay, be on the front foot, put prices on the website. And I have taken them up incrementally because the business needs to be sustainable.
yeah,
And I also have, you want to feel confident of everything that you're offering, when you start from day zero. And I will keep iterating the packages and the offer all the time. And I'm doing this 8-week program with other startups in Australia, they're tech startups, is you're always iterating. You might go to market with a product that is completely different from what you have it 3 months later. And that's okay. You have to respond
mm,
to what people need and what the market will bear and like where the value is. And anytime I hear of a new cool marketing thing, like there's a marketing company you guys should check out in the UK called Shimmer, and it's AI book marketing. And it looks like they've nailed this. So they're just taken out of your hands. So like I want to speak to them and like always be looking, how can we partner with people or what are others doing that, we could do well.
yeah, yeah.
But there's a tension between, you know, someone who can write, who's a fiction writer is so prolific, like, could write a book every 18 months, maybe even more of 100,000 words. So how can I publish all of their books so that they don't have to think about that? They're an amazing client for me. And how is it financially feasible for the author? Like that's always front of mind.
Mm.
I've just got a question about distribution. You mentioned earlier that I think you said you had a distributor. Was it based in Hong Kong?
No, I just got a printer in Hong Kong because I got a distributor in Australia. And then I got so excited. But when I stepped back and did the maths and crunched the numbers, I went, I'm losing like 80 cents on every sale. And panicked. And I was like, I have to bring the unit price down. I can't print with Ingram Spark. So I got 600 copies printed and shipped, the slowest shipping possible from Hong Kong, and that brought the price down. But then I was underwhelmed by when I got those royalty statements after a year. I was like, this is foolish. And getting the copies to the distributor involved, guess what, more postage and stuff. So that and they like didn't take my calls when I was like, how's my book going? Because I was overexcited. It
So was
wasn't
this
worthwhile.
a distributor that was handling your sales and distribution sales that have come through you, or are you talking about? Because I've got a question about this distributor. There's the professional distributors that work with the bookstore chains and they distribute. They're the retail distributors. So just to clarify, what type of distributor are you talking about?
It was the latter type. So if you join the Australian Society of Authors, it was actually Glee Books told me about it. You can pay the joining fee, which is a couple $100 a year, and then you get access to this distributor. And so they then take over all print copies of your book in Australia. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to do New Zealand. And New Zealand, that was really hard to get a distributor. She said, we will not carry a book unless you have a publicist. So then I got a publicist. So then another couple of $1,000s down, and COVID struck. And books were a non-essential item in New Zealand, which I just can't agree with that. And they pulped
Especially in
my book.
COVID.
Yeah. So they pulped my book. I paid a publicist, and the distributor, like, never, I don't think I ever got anything plus the shipping to New Zealand of my copies from Hong Kong. You know, it just never worked. If there is ever a way for this to work, I would love to recommend it to authors, but if it's not a decision I would make, then I just can't recommend it. And it's the same like with airports, like, you know, business authors in particular, they would love to be in an airport bookstore. That's like the holy grail as an author, but it's pay to play. You know, you've got to pay for that space.
Wow.
So,
So
you
yeah,
know,
that kind of leads into my question about distributors because my understanding has been so I'm with a small publisher and they always even though they have signed with a retail distributor and they've changed to a new one recently, so the authors that are with this particular publisher that I'm with, it's very, very difficult for our retail distributor to get our books accepted. They can pitch and they've got their
yeah,
the glossy what do you call it, the advanced,
brochure.
yeah, the brochure. Effectively, there's another name for it, but it's the brochure of your book. It's up to the bookstores to decide whether they will take your books on. And sort of the information that I'm getting is unless you are with one of the major publishing houses and it's a distributor that works for those major publishing houses, the chances of a distributor getting bookshops to take on your books, particularly as a self-published author or with a small publishing house, are virtually zero chance.
Yeah.
Again, the only books, if you go into Big W, Kmart, bookstores, airport stores, the only books you're going to see on the shelves are the new releases from the big publishing houses. You're not going to see self-published authors. You're not going to see authors from small publishing houses. They have just got the complete monopoly. So that's why I had that's my question around. I didn't even know it was a thing that self-published authors could pay a
Yeah.
distributor. Because my thinking is, well, why would you? Because the chances of even getting your books taken on by a bookstore are virtually nil anyway.
Why would you? It was unfortunately my answer as well. Financially, status, yes, you can be in bookstores, but you can be in bookstores while your book is a new release for 1 month, after which time, after 90 days, it can be returned and pulped. It's just an awful, an awful scenario to be in. So I just, I mean, that's my distributor said as well, like, we're minnows, they're not going to take books from us. Like we're a small list. But what I've subsequently learned, because I used to be in like Big W, like, oh, I so wish I was in Big W. You know, the authors and even the publishers may not be making any money from Big W, Kmart, and Target because those books are so heavily discounted. It's in the contract often that there may be a loss on that or just to break even. And the idea, and this is to quote Alex Adset, is that the books get into circulation. So like, you penetrate the market with 10,000, 20,000 copies and people will tell people. But to me, that's like, no.
It's a lot of income loss.
A sale is a sale. It's got to be. It's,
Yeah.
I just kind of scratch my head like, who's making money from books? Because, publishers are going under, bookstores are going under, traditionally published authors are going under. The ones that I see succeeding are self-published authors, and they've found other channels. But, I feel like an idiot when I say,
sorry, go on.
I say to clients, like, oh, bookstores don't sell that many books these days. Like, but it's just the conclusion. It's just not worth engaging in that arrangement because you can actually end up in debt as a self-published author at bookstores because unless you insist on it being firm sale, in which case they'll probably run away, they can return the book at your cost. And I know authors who have been in the negative.
Yeah,
So that's not a risk.
because they don't shop around for their return postage costs.
What were you going to say?
Don't worry, I've forgotten now.
I mean, I really want to be so disruptive that I met up with Ingram Sparks, global head of product development from the UK. And, I do really want to like rethink how we get books to readers because readers deserve more than the same kind of bland stuff, celebrity memoir, people not really being their full selves because it's sanitized to appeal to the mass market. I don't know, how can we rethink if an entire category of authors are ignoring bookstores, then maybe we need a better way, like whether it's a digital catalog, you do everything off your website. My nose is to the ground for better ways to do this, but I wish that, in a bookstore you get people wander in who they love books,
Yeah, yeah.
but there's so many problems with this. It
I,
has
I find
made,
the way I sell more books face to face. Just
yeah,
if I get the opportunity to just talk with people, I generally sell books to them.
yeah, amazing.
And that's going trying to get talks, trying to get out there to do that is part and parcel of being a self-published author. But yeah, it's time consuming as as all hell. And you're sort of saying about. I did look into a distributor and they just wanted such silly prices to
Really.
take your books on and do exactly what I was already doing. But it's just like, you're trying to, I had to this latest book they just released, or in the process of just releasing I had to up my postage cost on my website because I'd been running at nine, I think I started at 9.95. And now I've upped it to 10.95 because basically that's what the Australia Post
Yeah,
charges. But that doesn't take into account the box I've got to put it into, the
yeah,
labels I've got to put on them, the bag that it has to go in, and so when somebody pays 10.95 for the postage, I take usually I'm losing about 250 on that.
I think you should go with Amazon.
Oh, look, Amazon takes such a big cut
Well,
on
you'd
the.
make $8 a book and you
Oh,
wouldn't spend
I
any
cut it.
time.
My books. The Lost Leader for mine is my first book, which I sell. A print version of is $17, and my other books are sold at $20. I do have a collection of short stories, which is 150,000 words. That goes for 27.
Yeah,
But I try and keep my costs down, as the costs of the books
yeah,
to the readers as much as possible. And I did have this amusing sort of thing when Amazon started um, doing print on demand in Australia, and I couldn't work out why they were selling mine for $18.50 or whatever, 54 or some weird figure. And basically, I made zero when they
mm,
sold it at that price. And I had to up it on Amazon to $20 simply to make some money from an
yeah.
Amazon sale.
What about ebooks in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, I sell the ebooks off my website and off Amazon, and iBooks
Mm,
so I'll sell them through that. Yeah, and
mm,
they make money because there's virtually no sort of outlet. There's no sort
yeah,
of postage. You don't have to print anything. It's yeah,
yeah.
that's great. But
Instant delivery.
apparently 70% of people still buy Deadwood books. So
Yeah, yeah. If we could improve ebooks, to me, solve so many
yeah.
problems. They really do. I'm a Kindle reader, but I mean, I love
Oh
paperbacks. But I think also maybe we're not being marketed ebooks in the way that we should be. And in the UK, like it's very different. You really don't need to be traditionally published in the scales are really tipping the other way. And I
yeah.
think it's true for most the people making money are self-published authors most of the time, unless you really are super duper famous.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think, if I think that it's just you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and definitely ebooks will be an increasing share. I also have a little bit of skepticism around the numbers and stats and stuff that we get, like why Nielsen is private data. Well, this is not state secrets. This is the number of books sold. Again, this is shrouded in mystery. Who do they think they are, honestly? Charging people thousands of dollars a year to know how many books were sold. And they are the data provider. Like they've got I'd love to see a rival come and offer that data for free. But it wouldn't capture the sales that you get on your website. But all of these are obstacles that we can overcome to get some actual transparency to find out.
Mm, yeah.
Mm.
Can we now move on to another topic, which will be its own sort of chunk of conversation, its own right, around vanity publishing? And this is comes off the back. Jess, recently you posted a video on socials, which I thought was very well worded and very clever. And you were upfront, honest, and you had some very candid thoughts around the term vanity publishing. My question is, what you said before is you want to see yourself as different from the sharks. You got a point of difference. You're reputable, and how can you not be tainted with the same brush of this term vanity publishing? So, do you want to talk us through the essence of what you spoke about in that video around the misnomers of the term vanity publishing? Where did that term come from? What's the accepted understanding of what that means, and what is the reality of it? And again, how does that tie into where you see yourself positioning yourself in the market so that you are not perceived as yet another shark out there in the industry?
Well, vanity publishing, like the notion of it, is to me is like looking in a mirror and commissioning your own statue type thing, and you don't deserve it, and that you merely have the funds for your ego to be fulfilled in the form of a book, and that you're not interesting, you're not smart, your thoughts are not original. You've paid someone, I always say to people, a bag is not like a purse. You can't just go and buy it and acquire it. You have to create it, blood, sweat, and tears. And so, but there's this still prevailing notion that paying for your book is wrong, and it is immoral, and is like vain and an egocentric thing to do, instead of seeing a book as an asset that can supercharge your career, that can make your life more fulfilling and more rewarding. It's like, there's an analogy that I've started to think with traditional publishing. So you've got two choices, right? You can pay someone like Henry Books to make your book happen, and it will be the way that you want it to happen. Or you can get a traditional publisher to come and kind of swoop your feet and say, we choose you. We have rejected so many other books, and we're choosing your book because you're special. That to me is appealing to the ego. And there's no less egotistical author than a self-published author, unless they're like turned into a massive hotshot, in which case they deserve to, have the attitude. It's the ego I see, I'm sorry to say, is the people who have that chosen one mentality. Mm. And like, if someone said to me, I'll pay for your holiday, but I'm going to tell you where you're going to go and what you're going to do every day and where you're going to stay and what you're going to wear and when you go home and when you leave, or I can save up, pay for my own holiday, look forward to it, plan every last detail, have an amazing time, subject to things going wrong, and come home and know that I paid for that myself. Like, I think I have heard on stages people in traditional publishing say, quote, if anyone asks you to pay to publish your book, run the other way. That cannot be trusted. I just think that is so 1980s, 1970s. And I would also say that Virginia Woolf self-published her book. She and Leonard bought a printing press because they were damn well not going to be stopped. Like, her books had to be published. She really had something to say. Jane Austen paid what we might call a vanity publisher. She actually paid to publish her first book, and look how that turned out. And people who will pay, who will put their money where their mouth are people who believe so much in their book that they are willing to back themselves and invest and part with money to see their book come alive. Now, I want Hembury Books clients to recoup what they spend on their books because I want them to return and do more books. And I'm happy to say that my first client has had an outstanding case of that where she's multiplied her investment. But I do want to ask, as it comes up to the 1 year anniversary, like, how are you going? Can you give me some sales data? We can do it anonymously, but let's see how these self-published authors are going and faring. And like, the returns you get on your book is directly proportionate to the time and effort and smarts you put into your book. And that's how it should be as well. Like, no question. And so I get annoyed when people think that the books we publish aren't good because we haven't been mean to authors about whether or not they can publish their book. Like, what if we just removed that question and just said, you can publish your book and we'll make it the best book it can be? And we have amazing editors to help with all of that. And we just take away that question, which for me was like, I was obsessed with that for probably 5 years of my life. And it was awful.
Mm. I think there's a huge amount of snob value and looking down on people who decide I'm not going traditional, I'm going to do it myself, or I'm going to get a company to print it, and then you have this whole. I mean, it's probably similar sort of the snobbery between sort of genre fiction is not real fiction. It's all of that sort of snobbery is part of the publishing world. It is something that has been established for centuries, and
Yeah, hasn't changed.
it hasn't changed, and it's difficult to work against it. But as you rightly say, it's a different decade, and it's things have changed. The whole sort of dynamics have changed. The fact that somebody can literally write a novel and output it and be selling it on the world market,
Yeah.
without any input from anybody else, and just one person can do it. You look at that 20 years ago, and it's just like you can't possibly do that. And so
Well,
things have so greatly changed. And nobody looks at the person who wants to. They don't look down on somebody who says, "Oh, I'm going to go and get all of my photographs, and I'm going to get Apple to print me a book of all my photos in a big nice album, so my family can look at it." Nobody thinks that is absurd.
no,
But if you
no,
go
but
and if you want to produce a book, then they go, "Oh, you're just being vain," and
yeah.
that's so ridiculous.
Who do you think you are type thing. And I've
Yeah.
heard similar attitudes like, look, it's okay if you just want to print a few copies for your family, but don't you dare get that book into the wild. Like, don't you dare go into the public and ask for people to listen to you. It's okay to like play small. And I just think, oh my gosh, some of the most interesting people are some of the most humble people, but
Mm.
they don't care about how the book gets out there. What's important is the book, and that the real fire inside them is the message of their book. And they're the people that are amazing to work with, not, you're so lucky to have my book. And, I am God's gift to literature. And, I'm all these epiphanies contained in my pages. I hate that kind of attitude. But I do feel that some of the snobbery, there's a vested interest in perpetuating these
Oh, of
stereotypes
course.
because it undermines their business model.
Yeah.
But look at other industries. Look at the way music is distributed, and people. The direct relationship between the content creator and the audience has materialized for every other creative industry. So why are we being held back with books?
Mm.
Why this attitude? You would never say, "Oh my God, he's an indie musician." Like, who does he think he is?
And I know
So,
there's this been I guess this cloud that this perception that self-published books are a lesser standard or quality, and that unless you've been through all the checkpoints of being accepted by a literary agent, and it's very hard to get accepted by an agent, let alone get picked up by a big publishing house. You're probably looking at one in several thousand chance. I think Alex Adsett in your podcast with her, I think she said
Yeah,
she might pick up one in 500
yeah,
um,
if that.
of people that come to her. That's an agent.
Mm.
then you have to try and find a publisher. So there's always been this attitude that the people that have made it through to that point where they get picked up by a major publishing house, they must be the best. But I tell you what, and I was always of that view
Mm.
because that's what I have, and
That's what I was fed too.
I guess we're all, we've all aspired to that. We'd all love to be published by a big publishing house because we're thinking that's validation that we've made it, that we've gone through and we've been recognized, we've been selected. As you say, we're special because we're better than everyone else that we've been. But we all know it's so subjective, and it just depends on who's sitting at the desk the day that you send your submission through. We all know that there's a lot of these big publishing houses will hire junior interns, and if that junior intern is a particular fits a certain profile, there's probably going to be certain manuscripts they're not going to look at, and so on. But I tell you what, my point is that I've read most recently. I've been purchasing and reading Australian books. My niche is Australian crime, so I've made a point of over the years I've read a lot of James Patterson. James Patterson inspired everything that I did as a young, early in my crime writing days, big in the US. But more recently, I'm reading Australian crime authors, and there's a lot of women out. Women are starting to really dominate that space in the Australian crime fiction space, and this isn't a sexist or gender issue, but it just to me that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And
Andrew
I've
Martin said the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're really starting to see a shift. The momentum has moved from a traditionally male-oriented industry to, my view, is a very strongly female-oriented industry. With you look at agents, publishing houses are predominantly women. You go to
Yeah.
any writing event, predominantly women, and I'm now starting to see that transpire into a lot of Australian crime authors that are getting picked up by traditional publishing houses are women. And sadly, and again, it's got nothing to do with gender. I'm just talking about the quality of the books. I've been reading them thinking I'm bitterly underwhelmed to the point that I was reading a book last night and I said, I can't finish this. I'm reading
Mm.
these books to inspire me because this is where I want to get to, but they're just not living up to my expectations. And
Yeah.
I'm really starting to question, are these people being published because they meet a particular profile? It's politically correct to publish certain people,
Yeah.
or is it because their manuscripts are better than everyone else's? I'm not convinced it's the latter.
I think there's risk aversion, and the risk aversion has gotten out of control.
Mm.
And the books are just getting less interesting. So it's becoming a vicious cycle, I
Mm.
think,
I
because you
think
just don't take risks. But look at Taylor Swift self-publishing her book, right?
well, yes. Does it really matter? She
She,
doesn't need
well,
a publisher.
she
Seriously.
what I think is that she will, because she has the power to transform. She creates words and phrases and
Mm.
things. Like, her power over language is amazing. And so what she can do, she could reset attitudes and stigma, because there is still stigma. It sounds crazy to say it because I've forgotten that it exists, but there actually is still stigma in some quarters around self-publishing, and she could shoot that, like in an instant. So it'll be interesting to see, with her further books and everything. I'm pretty sure she'll continue self-publishing, and you put Taylor Swift and self-publishing together in a sentence and it does powerful things.
I think one way that should be perhaps we should as self-published authors we should be pushing is read my first chapter, because
Yeah.
that's what agents do, that's what publishers do, and if it's crap, people won't buy your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, they'll go, no, I don't like this. And Amazon does that with See Inside. You get to read at least some of it.
I know.
iBooks does it where you get your sample and you can see at least several pages, and you can have a read of the ebook. If you don't like it, you don't pay for it. And I'm quite happy with that, but because
Yeah.
I am sort of confident that people will enjoy my writing. So I don't care if you want to read. So my first chapters of all my novels I give two short stories as freebies are on my website.
Right.
The first chapters of each of the novels are on the website, so people can just read the first chapter. If they don't like it, well, you're not going to like the rest of the book if you don't like the first chapter.
Yeah, my
So
prologue is on the website too, but it's like, oh no, we need to be the gatekeepers to protect people, unwitting consumers from buying a bad book that's been self-published.
yeah,
And
let the consumer decide.
let them decide. It's like there's some danger in the possibility of bad books being on the market, like a traditional publisher has never published a bad book. But readings, one of my clients' books, he took it to them to show them for consideration and also, to see if they would have his launch. And they checked it and added it to their catalog, but with a warning saying that this book is self-published and may not meet your expectations. And if it doesn't, you can't return it. And I was so angry. I contacted the Alliance of Independent Authors. Like, this is not on. Like, either stock the book or don't stock the book. This is also your stock. Like, from a business point of view, this is bananas and
Yeah.
so offensive to do
Yeah.
that. And I would also say, once again, if you are investing in your book, you will make damn sure that it's a good book. And some of my clients' books have been edited 6 times, and they'll say, oh, no, let's just get it proofread. I want it to be the best book it can be, because the
Yeah.
buck stops with them.
Yeah.
Tell an author to care less about their book, right? If they're given the control. So stop telling me that it might be shoddily done.
Yeah.
Sure, it theoretically you can, do some scratchings, do some typing. It's still got to get past the quality checks, which actually take ages, and they're done by humans on Amazon and Ingram, to check for plagiarism and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is absolute the minority, the absolute minority. And we'll look at Jamie Oliver's book that had to be pulled from the shelves. That got
Yes.
through a lot of checks.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I think it's a very weird kind of proposition to be like, no, we must gatekeep what the public can read, because what if they spent $30 on a bad book that they didn't enjoy?
And it's not so much a bad book, as you say. It's the cancel culture that traditional publishers are probably are very aware of. We have to be very careful that we don't offend somebody in a particular demographic, versus this whole idea of, if I'm writing a novel and I want to portray a character who is a bad person, and that bad person might say certain things that are sexist, racist. But that's not the author's attitude. That's the character. We're deliberately making the character a bad person. And there would probably be some publishers who would say, "Oh, we can't publish that because you
Can't possibly say that."
What the character has said was racist." But no, I didn't say it. My character did. So we're starting to see the watering down of bad guys, and because it's could be perceived as trigger warnings, offensive. So again, it comes back to, I suppose, for me, 2 points is, and is it, it's not necessarily the case that the books that are being published in the big traditional houses are the best books. There's probably reasons and other political reasons why they've been selected, and they've gone through certain, things like checking around potential offense that people could see, as opposed to whatever happened to honest expression of voice and truthfulness. We're so scared of offending anyone, we can't say the truth around things. And ultimately, as we said, who determines what a good book is? And I think this was something that you might have mentioned in one of your videos as well, Jess, around this whole issue. And we've probably already touched on it enough, but I think this is the essence of our entire conversation. I think we're all agreeing here that ultimately it's the reader, it's the consumer who determines what is a good book. And what I see that you're doing, Jess, is that you're providing an opportunity to give a leg up to authors who maybe there might be people like Harry, who is confident and has the nous to self-publish and understands the business and formatting of a book and everything that goes on behind the scenes. But I'm sure there's a lot of authors out there that have spent years and years working, but they just don't have the self-confidence, and they've been shattered. Their confidence has been shattered through rejections. And what I see you're doing, Jess, is providing a service for those books that would otherwise never have seen the light of day. And you're providing a step up for those authors, and you're holding their hand, giving them the confidence to back themselves and showing them how to do it.
Yep, that's it. And publishing books, like, books should be a safe space where we confront ourselves, explore who we are. Like, it's a book, it's writing. If we don't have the safety to
put it down.
We've got to be honest with each other about our dark side and our light side, and like, that is an appropriate place to do that. And we should be, because bolstering each other to do that, to be braver and braver and braver, because I read some of my clients' books. And I'm like, you are so brave. Like you're so amazing to be, because I can relate to you, but I never had the guts to say it, and you don't feel alone anymore as well. Like that's a massive thing to give someone else is not to feel alone or to feel ashamed of who they are. And that's how we progress as well. So if you're taking out those characters and those things that do actually happen, or we have the capacity to have those feelings, we're not progressing as a species. Like it's really, really important.
I think another aspect of it is, look at the reviews of books on Amazon and the like. If you go, why if the publishing industry is so good, why aren't they not all 5 star?
Yeah.
Why is it that you
Yeah.
get books that have got a hell of a lot of 1 to 3 stars because, people don't particularly like them.
Yeah.
And that decision is made by the reader, not by the publisher. It should be a case of open slather. We should be able to all be producing books on a level playing field, but unfortunately, it is definitely not a level playing field at the moment.
No, because there's a chokehold on the access
Yeah,
distribution and stuff. So it's ripe for disruption. But I would also say, I think sometimes it's the authors. You can start off as a really great author, but you can be straitjacketed by your publisher. So I
mm,
know one who has written books in other genres that her publisher won't touch because she is known for colonial history with a focus on women, and that is what her fans like. And they're saying, stay in your lane. And she's like, but I don't want to, like, I don't feel fulfilled.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
have said, if you self-publish that, you'll never be invited to literary festivals again. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And that's not fair on the author. Like we
No.
authors are really creative and should be allowed to experiment. And again, should have the safety that like maybe people won't love their new book, but also it might be the best thing that they've ever written, and they've fulfilled their need to tell that part of them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a bit messed up, I think, at the moment.
Well, Jess, Harry, we do need to start pulling up stumps. It's been a fantastic chat, but I also just wanted to flag you've also got your Hembry Books podcast, which is going great guns and some fantastic content. You're interviewing, very similar to us, you're interviewing authors and industry experts. Tell us a little bit about that before we wrap up, and how can people find that?
Yeah, so the Henry Books podcast, again, it began by interviewing nonfiction authors because I thought, how could we possibly just interview everybody? But again, the slant is mostly indie authors, people in that space, but publishing experts as well. How can we find new ways to market our books? What are the best techniques? What doesn't work? What's been really great? And so every week, I interview someone and we kind of pick a topic. It's something that they have really excelled in. So I've got one author that I'm excited about. She got a BookBub deal in 2018 and that transformed her career. She got 18,000 downloads and is a full-time writer, which is really cool that she's making such good money from her book. So it's just that collective pooling of knowledge and tips. And again, staying on top of the trends. Technology is changing, opportunities are changing. And also, I think, in an industry where we might be seen as untrustworthy, it just is a way of kind of doing something that is just about the knowledge sharing and for a love of books, really. And I get to talk to people that I would otherwise have to send an annoying email like, can I pick your brain? I'm new to the industry. It's given me a reason to reach out to someone and then to talk about distribution or to talk to Ingram Spark. Like that was really great to talk to Chris Munnery. How does Ingram Spark work? And then the authors, if I get a new client, I can direct them to an episode that is relevant to what they need at that point in time.
Mm. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, Jess, congratulations on what you've achieved with building Hembry Books to where it is now. I've been watching it. I've been very impressed with what you've done. And I think anyone who's got any doubts at all about your professionalism and genuineness is talk to you.
Oh,
You,
that's very nice.
I think you speak for yourself. You are the face and voice of Hembry Books, and anyone who speaks with you and sees you speaking to other people on your videos and social media posts and conversations like this will see that you are there. Your heart is in the right place, and I can see that. And I think anyone that works with you or
Mm.
speaks with you will see that. So I really off you hand on heart all the best with your career. I hope your publishing house takes off. It sounds like it's already going gangbusters, and it sounds like for those authors that feel they need that extra assistance, check it out and speak with you, get some advice, and go from there.
Thanks a lot, Jack.
So we will say goodbye for now. So thanks so much, Jess. Thanks, Harry, as usual. And
There you go.
again, keep an eye on the Henbury Books podcast for more updates and more news as well. So all the best, everyone. We'll see you next episode on the Genre Fiction podcast. Bye for now.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Bye now.